And we can move on. Great. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so good afternoon. Before we proceed, we have interpreters here today, so I'd like to have them share instructions on how members of the public can access interpretation services for today's meeting. For all task force members and participants who prefer English, please click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen to join the English language channel. I will now pass it over to the Spanish interpreter, and then we'll follow along for interpreters for Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Mandarin, and Cantonese. So over to our Spanish interpreter. I'm not hearing anything in our Spanish.
Marcella, can you join the English channel, Marcella, to share your announcement?
It looks like the Spanish interpreter said they're set in their channel, but we were not able to hear the announcement in the main channel.
You didn't just hear that, Monica?
No.
Okay. For folks who are English speakers, can you click on the interpretation bubble? It's a little globe sign at the bottom of your screen, or it might be under more, and hit English, and then you'll be able to hear the interpreter announcements.
Okay. So let's move on then to Portuguese. Could we have the Portuguese interpreter?
And interpreters, for your announcements, we need you in the English channel temporarily.
I'm still not able to hear any announcements.
Yeah, I don't hear it. I see Gus. So for Fox translation, if you are here with us, you need to move into the English channel to present. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And let's go to our Haitian Creole interpreter. And you need to be in the English channel to share your announcement, please. Great, thank you so much. Let's go to our Mandarin interpreter, please. Great, thank you. And let's go to our Cantonese interpreter, please. Great, thank you. And unfortunately, we were not able to secure ASL interpretation for today's meeting. So many apologies for that. So thank you again to our interpreters who are here for supporting today's meeting. Welcome to the public and task force members, including new task force member David English, resident of Cambridge. For those of you who weren't here with us last time, my name is Monica Roy. I serve as the Senior Director of Environmental Justice at the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jonathan Guzman, Director of Environmental Justice and Equity at the Office of Environmental Justice and Equity at EEA. Together, we are co-chairing this task force, and we're also grateful to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC, who are supporting this work through a facilitation contract to assist both us and the task force in advancing our shared goals. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Thanks to everybody who reviewed the draft agenda. As you can see, much of our time today will be focused on reviewing the draft public engagement materials that were shared, walking through the plan for the November public hearings, and beginning to explore preliminary recommendations and ideas that the task force may want to include in the report. Let's go to the next slide. So first on our agenda, we would like to call this meeting to order with a roll call. If you are present, please unmute yourself and clearly state present so we can record your attendance. Jonathan Guzman? We know you are present because you spoke, but if you're
Monica, are you on the English channel?
I'm on the English channel.
Okay, so you were able to hear me say that. Okay, yeah, present. Just making sure.
Okay, yep, great. Logan Bailey is absent today. I think Mara will be sitting in for Logan, but may not be considered part of the quorum. Mara, are you here?
I'm here.
Just so we know. Okay, great. Thank you. Derek? Derek Neal?
Present.
Thank you. Kyle?
Present.
Angel? Thank you. Ken Reeves? And if you're speaking, we did not hear you. Okay, Jeremy Battle?
Yes, present.
Great, thank you. Galen Mook?
Present.
Thank you. Laura Jasinski?
Present. Present.
Okay. Thank you. Angela D'Souza? For our Haitian Creole translator, we are hearing you in the English channel. You may need to be over in the Haitian Creole channel. Francisca?
Present.
Thank you. Lawrence Adkins?
Present.
Thank you. Sheila? Headley?
Present.
Thank you. Stephen Miller?
Here, present.
Thank you. Denise Haynes?
Present.
Thank you. David English?
Present.
Thank you. And myself, I am present. Great. So for
Hi.
17.
Up and just want to say Thomas Leonard is present as well.
Oh, Thomas. I'm sorry. Yes, I did have you on this list. Thank you. I don't think I missed anybody else. Okay. We do have quorum today, so we will continue. And let's move on to the next slide. Putting up these norms again briefly, established here to help us collectively shape a place that's both welcoming and productive. We'll also put a link to these norms in the chat. We won't read through them, but we'll keep them up here for a few seconds. This one and this next one. We didn't receive any feedback on these since the last meeting, but again, just note that these norms can always be revisited, and please feel free to reach out to us via email if you have an amendment idea. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. The Zoom chat will be open for task force members during today's meeting, though private messaging will be disabled. We encourage members to use the raise your hand feature when contributing to the discussion, as this is a public meeting. Please remember that all chat messages are part of the public record and will be included in the meeting minutes. To help us keep things running smoothly, kindly keep your microphone muted unless you're actively addressing the working group. Our colleagues at MAPC will be monitoring the chat to ensure that comments and questions are captured during designated discussion periods. If you're not a task force member, we ask that you hold off on using the chat until the public comment period at the end of the meeting, time permitting. Thank you. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan for the next agenda item, which is the review of last meeting's minutes.
Thank you, Monica. You should have all received the draft minutes from our meeting 2, which was held on September 12th. So before we move to accept them, we just want to make sure that if you have any edits or amendment, that this is the time to consider it. So is there any amendments for the minutes for meeting 2? Okay, so if we have no amendments, we're gonna go ahead and move to ask for a motion for approval of the minutes.
Also move.
I'll second.
Who was the first? I cannot see individuals. Who was the motion?
Steven.
Steve Miller.
Steve, okay. And who was the second?
Thomas Leonard.
Thomas, thank you, Thomas. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna go ahead. If you were here, you either can vote approve or not approve. If you were not here, feel free to abstain from approving them today, okay? So starting with Monica.
Approve.
Thank you. Logan is absent today. We're gonna go to Derek.
Approve.
Thank you, Kyle. I know Ken is not here unless he just joined. Jeremy.
Approved.
Thank you. Galen. Galen was with us. Laura.
I will abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. Laura.
Approve.
Thank you. Angela. Fran.
Abstain?
Thank you. Lawrence. This also. Sheila.
Approve.
Thank you. Steve.
Approve.
Thank you. Denise.
Approve.
Thank you. Thomas.
Approve.
Thank you. David.
Which one? English?
English. David, I would say that you will abstain on this matter because you're new to the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. And then myself, I will approve. Okay, awesome. So we have enough in favor. So the motion is approved to the minutes, and we can go ahead and continue with the rest of the meeting. I would like to advance to slide 9, and would like to pass it on to Monica.
Thanks, Jonathan. And actually, we'll now hand it over to our colleagues at MAPC to guide us through this overview again of the draft engagement activities and timeline, and to gather any input for what's missing here.
Thanks, Monica. Hi, everybody. My name is Sasha Brody. I work at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and we I, alongside Van Du, are supporting in the engagement activities for this task force that will supplement the public hearings and recommendations process. So before we talk about the engagement that we're going to be doing this next month in particular, we just wanted to kind of reground ourselves in where we are in the timeline for the task force. So we did initial conversations and stakeholder mapping in July and August, and had our first task force meeting in August. We then met again in September and spoke with you all about some of the strategies we were considering to supplement the public hearings, because we recognize that not everybody may attend a public hearing, and we want to make sure there are different ways that folks can make their perspectives heard throughout this process. And now we're really squarely in October/November. We're having our third task force meeting, and we are beginning to embark on our engagement activities. This includes having one-on-one conversations with key organizations or community groups, and we've already started reaching out to some folks that you all have recommended to us, and to some of you here on this call. And then those one-on-one conversations will feed into several small group conversations that we plan to have with folks specifically in languages other than English. We will also be doing door knocking and flyering, again, based off of some of the recommendations that you all made in prior task force meetings. And all of that engagement is going to inform the public hearings that we are looking to have in November. Once those public hearings happen, we'll have all of this robust input. We'll have conversations we've had with community members. We'll have had the public hearings. That is going to inform the draft report that you all are responsible for. And we will wrap up the process in January to March with our final meetings and finalizing the report. So that's just generally the timeline for this process. Hopefully this is somewhat familiar to most folks here, but we just wanted to reground that right now we're really in that October/November stage. Next slide, please, Van. So I talked a little bit about this, but I just wanted to kind of start by thinking about how our engagement really ties into this process. We really see the engagement as kind of the next step after building our relationships with you all here with our first few meetings, in understanding what we need to know about the landscape that we're working in, the geographical area that we're working in, and using that understanding to then inform how we structure and design our public hearings, and also to start hearing what might be included in the recommendations that come out of this process. So this slide, and again, you'll have access to this slideshow after this meeting, is really just to help kind of contextualize the engagement that we're doing. It's part of our building block in this process. Next slide. So we sent you some materials, including a summary of engagement, which I just verbally kind of went over, the starting with one-on-one conversations, doing small group sessions, and then flyering and door knocking. So those are kind of our 4 primary engagement activities that we will be doing over this next 4 to 6 weeks, depending on scheduling. We also sent you all 3 materials for engagement that we are really excited to get your feedback on. And so we're going to use the next section of our time together today to talk through these materials. And we're going to start by talking through the flyer. One thing that we heard from you all in the previous sessions is that it would be really helpful for the public hearings if we had an eye-catching flyer that was posted in areas that people are frequenting, both in Cambridge and along the along Memorial Drive, but also in the residential areas, so that folks are really aware ahead of time of this. And so we have put this flyer together. Hopefully some of you saw this in the emails that we sent out. And I'd love to open up to hear your feedback. Would you stop and look at this if you were walking down Memorial Drive? Are there things that you wish this flyer had that it doesn't? So I will pause here and see if folks have any comments or feedback. Yeah, Thomas, go for it.
Would it be possible to add a scannable QR code to this flyer so that if folks are interested in participating in a public meeting, it would direct them right to the registration link?
Yeah, we can do that.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Denise.
I must say, I like the flyer. But are we taking for granted that people know what a task force hearing? What is a task force? What does it mean?
Yeah,
And also, are we looking at gathering information about just improvements? Because part of the, at least for this group, that PIRR, or for folks who actually live, say, within Putnam Ave or the next block off of Memorial Drive, it's not just improvements, but we want to know what's the impact of things that have changed along, or any changes along the river. How do you feel it's impacted you?
yeah, we played around with that language a lot because it's hard to like get all the specifics into one flyer without overwhelming it. I would be curious, Denise, if you have phrasing like you just gave, if you wanted to put it in the chat, we can try and incorporate that into the flyer, so that it's a little bit more of a comprehensive reference.
It may be too much. I mean, maybe that's part of your actual talking versus this is just a, hey, we're making you aware, we're having a meeting to talk about, what opinions do you have about improvements that should be made along Memorial Drive. So otherwise, yes, I think it's very nice. It's eye-catching. And also maybe with the hearing details, again, people don't understand public hearings versus what is a hearing, because in this time, this environment that we're in now, when people hear about when you hear the word hearings, you think of legal, going to court, and people are not necessarily trying to go to court or do things. So it's just being aware of the words that we're putting on here.
Thanks for that, Denise. And one thing I'm thinking is, the QR code that we'll add and the link, the hyperlink on here, which I'm realizing now only works if you're looking at this flyer digitally. So we'll fix that with the QR code. It'll go to the registration page, which we can put a little bit more information on because it's not a huge flyer, or it's not in tight writing on a flyer. So we can add some of that nuance that you brought in terms of, we're not just talking about improvements. We want to hear about these other aspects that you mentioned. We can add that into that longer description on the registration page so folks have a better understanding. And then Monica and Jonathan, maybe we can check in afterwards about legally what we can adjust here on this flyer. If this isn't, if it's possible to maybe change some of that language. I think we're following sort of open meeting practices here, but maybe there's a way for us to change some of the language on the flyer, so that, to Denise's point, we're folks are getting some understanding there.
And I just have one more point. Francesca brought up a point that there was a meeting and the people along Putnam Ave dominated. If she could speak to which meeting, and then we can address that.
Just for the sake of time, Fran, can I ask you to actually clarify that in the chat, and we'll continue with our feedback on the flyer. We only have about 15 more minutes, and I just want to make sure that we're hearing from other folks about the materials we're going to use, because we're really trying to get that out. But invite you to share that in the chat if you can. Great. And then Stephen, go ahead. And thank you, Denise, for your feedback.
Yeah, I think Denise's point about the title being slightly obscure for most people is good. I think it'd be nice also if you had a little map. Elliott Bridge to Longfellow Bridge. I don't assume everybody knows which bridges are all those. So just a sense, because it's a pretty extensive area that we're talking about. This is not just between Western and River or River and the parks or whatever. So it's pretty extensive and give people all along that area the chance to have some input.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I actually am realizing now we thought about putting a map on here and that completely must have forgotten to do that when we were designing it. So we can tinker with adding that in. So appreciate that. Go to Lawrence and then Galen.
Yeah, just a quick observation, and I know we got pastor battles on. These are going to be hung in churches because an opinion about improvements doesn't kind of open the window that churches again can have activities on the Charles, which in the past they had normalcy of. Some people may not see that as an improvement. They may see that as a lost art that the Charles between those two locations used to and frequently had. So is that part of your plan?
I'm sorry, Lawrence, you cut out a little bit. What was your specific question about churches?
Is this flyer going to be placed in churches? Because the flyer doesn't seem to draw that attention for their participation if it's not placed where they can see it to participate.
Yes, the idea is that this flyer would be posted in many different parts of the community. So on the street, we would ask if churches would be willing to post it if they have a community bulletin board or something of that sort. I think a couple folks last meeting mentioned the public library, the Cambridge Community Center, key streets where we're really hoping to reach neighbors. So I think the idea is that this flyer would go in a lot of different places so that it can reach people where they are. It's also the flyer we would have in our hand when we go door knocking so that we can hand it to folks as we're explaining the public hearings and talking through it with them. But we also want it to be something that somebody might see as a standalone item.
I hope you add the Cambridge's Black Pastors Alliance, and that would assist in getting them out to all of those venues. Thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence. That's a really helpful recommendation. Really appreciate that. Galen?
Great, thanks. Couple of questions actually. Is this going to be paired with a form of digital feedback where people can take a survey or otherwise be prompted to provide information not at the public hearing?
I don't think we had digital feedback planned. Monica or Jonathan, curious.
So just to jump in really fast, I think the form of digital feedback that we currently have planned would be to have a public comment period for the draft of the task force report that would be going out post public hearings. But that's an interesting idea to have also a forum or a place for people that can't attend the hearings to get feedback in that can still inform that first draft of the report.
Great. That was my second question. Is that possible? I think you're going to be doing a lot of outreach with this, especially door to door. I think it's really nice to have that paired so folks will be aware that they can attend in real time. But obviously, it's hard for people to make time if it's like a weeknight and they've got jobs or life and other things. So in this new era of virtual feedback, I would really encourage us to partner those efforts. My other thought in terms of the graphics, I'll just speak real quickly on this one. Maybe this is also Denise's point about talking about like what the challenges are and kind of encouraging people to prompt the thought process of the challenges. When I look at this flyer, it looks like an advertisement for Head of the Charles or Splash in the River, which, you know, are wonderful events. But I think the purpose of this is to get the critique of where Mem Drive is. And so I might recommend images that show some of the challenges, like I mean, not to lean into it, but backed up traffic at the rotary or pavement conditions on the pathway or something along those lines, which might prompt a little bit more activism in the engagement. Not to be too critical, obviously, but I think there's like a little bit of a visual discontinuity with this graphic right here because it shows a lovely little spot, but we're trying to focus on the pain points. At least my read of the notes from last meeting, we're kind of focused on the pain points. So I could be off in the direction you want to take this, but that's my feedback. And then I also want to underscore, I agree with Steve about the map. And I also agree with the language. I think task force is a little bit of a haughty term overall. So try to strike that. Thanks.
Thanks, Galen. Yeah, I think we're trying to strike a balance of, catching somebody's eye out just on their day enough that they'll stop and read it, but then having it, have the tone that we want in terms of getting constructive feedback from folks, so we can play around a little bit with either how we use language to pull that out a little bit more or imagery. Laura and David, I see your hands. I'm also seeing this conversation in the chat continuing with Denise and Fran, and just want to confirm with Monica and Jonathan that that conversation will continue offline. Is that right? Or do
yes, and I also wonder if it falls under one of the other agenda items later on in terms of discussing where the public hearings might take place and how that could potentially shape who is participating as well.
Great.
Actually, that wasn't my point. My point is that we're not recording chat, we're recording the actual meeting. And if Fran has something, I didn't want to have her voice not heard, but it's in chat and it's offline.
Oh,
And I think possibly whatever she's saying might actually build on what someone else's points are as well. I didn't want to lose it. I know we lost like 10 minutes with the translators, but can we get 10 minutes to hear from others who might have a different, like an impact or a pain point?
just so you know, Denise, the chat is recorded, so it will be available.
Sure, but hearing somebody and seeing your face.
I understand. I
and
just wanted to make it clear that we are recording the
Sure.
chat, and anything that goes in there will be documented.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Monica, up to you. What is how are we doing this right now? We're gonna wait until our next agenda item.
Why don't we, because we only have about 5 more minutes for this section. So what if we finished with the feedback on the flyers? And I think the next section is focused on the timing for the public hearings. That's kind of a nice pause point, and we can offer an opportunity to dig into Fran's comment a little bit more. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, Laura and Jeremy, passing it to each of you for feedback.
Sure, just quickly, and this might, not to get into a longer conversation about the recommendations that will come out in the report, and if there are any guidelines or rails we're trying to put on like the type of recommendation. My understanding is also this is definitely about pain points and physical improvements, but that might be something that is improved not just in kind of like physical planning, but also activation. So I just wonder if there's a way in the flyer to also suggest, is there something you'd like to do that you aren't able to do right now? So people that, and that might open up the conversation to more folks that feel like they might not, have the technical background to talk about like streetscape improvements, but it's a usable park and how everyone wants to, so opening up that type of dialogue as well. And thanks for asking for all this feedback. It's a lot of feedback on a flyer. I know it's a lot, but hopefully you're getting some good input that goes beyond this.
I love it. Give me all the input. We'll find some middle ground. I'm thinking, Laura, that for what you're suggesting, similar to some of the language Denise proposed, I'm wondering if we can include that in the registration, as these are some of the types of improvements we want to hear about, to kind of prompt folks as they're thinking. That way we can have that language a little bit more in depth without overwhelming the flyer. I think generally with flyers, the rule of thumb is like you have 50 to 30 seconds of somebody's attention, maybe less with the current.
Yeah, I just in this process don't want us to lose the power of programming as well for activating public space and making people feel welcome there. So
yeah, no, really appreciate that. We'll definitely try to incorporate that in info spaces. Jeremy, passing to you.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think one of my colleagues already shared. I do think that the graphic could benefit from painting a better picture of what folks are actually being activated to engage with. That seems to be unclear. It's just a picture of the side of the river, which is really not sort of the the impact point. And I do think a mosaic or a collage could be beneficial there in that same space area. I think that's a pretty easy thing to do. And I think the second piece for me is we've had a lot of gatherings, and I think I shared this in our first gathering as well. That I don't think the goal is to just get people there. I think the idea is to get active input and insights from folks in terms of pain points. And I do think that a survey approach would be helpful. I think a QR code, for example, on the actual graphic that could point people towards something with some prompting questions that could get actual feedback. And frankly speaking, even with respect to the handouts. I mean, I think, a flyer is one thing, but oftentimes flyers become just a waste and, just unfortunately are in the trash can on the sidewalks and the gutters. And I think that even maybe thinking about this actual handout being sort of impromptu survey so that when you actually pass them out to folks, folks can pencil in their names and actually pass it back to you so that we can activate and get actual engagement. Because I do think that someone else brought it up with respect to changing schedules and sort of availability. I think what we want to do is just get as much broad impact engagement as we can.
Yeah.
And I think that the flyer, as is, it tells us something, but I don't think it really engages as quickly as it can in terms of just survey mechanisms and approaches to get feedback.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I think a lot of what you're sharing could be really great to incorporate in the door knocking. I know for a different project that we did, when we door knocked, we had a flyer, but we also we had some paper surveys so if somebody just wanted to write something down there, they could, or there was a QR code that they could scan. So I think we can play around with how we incorporate that. And the hope with the flyer is that we are supplementing it with that door knocking so that we are able to give folks a little bit more of that kind of nuanced communication and engagement opportunity. And we can think about I really like the mosaic idea so that we can include like the map and the different photos, suggestions that folks made. So we can play around with that here. And then I think incorporating some of the language, I think what I'm hearing from folks is going deeper into the word improvements and maybe getting at a little bit more of the dynamic nature of what we're talking about here, clarifying what a public hearing is, or maybe thinking about other language that we can use, and then using some imagery that really gets at activation of space, some of the challenges we've already been hearing about, and really prompting people to think about what they want to see for themselves in their day-to-day in that area.
Yeah, and I think the other reason I'm saying that is I just think that what we found even in this meeting and the other gatherings is if we get folks in a room, we may not actually be able to hear all the feedback because of just the parameters of time. And so I think from my perspective, you want to get a quick win here. You want to immediately, to the best of your ability, get feedback from folks and get insights. And I just think, frankly speaking, even in terms of green and the use of paper and so on and so forth, this is like, okay, we're going to just print some paper to tell people to show up to a meeting to hear them, when we could actually just print it one time and do 2-in-1, make it informational and make it submissible in terms of folks being able to submit it and give you some real-time feedback on the spot.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you so much, everybody, for the feedback that you provided. As I mentioned, we are recording the chat. So if you have additional thoughts, I would really love to hear them. This is very, very helpful. This is very much a first draft of the flyer, and we really do want to incorporate what we can of your feedback into it. So please feel free to share in the chat or over email after this meeting. There are 2 other documents that we sent you, slides for popping up at a meeting. I think folks mentioned the Alston Civic Association meeting and others. So we would love similar feedback to this. This was super helpful, very concrete. Some of the language feedback we got from this, I will make sure to incorporate in the slides as well. But if you have additional feedback, again, please email us. And similar for the door knocking script, I can say that we'll already adjust the scripts based on the feedback we received on the flyer, and assuming that we add a survey of some sort or a digital way for folks to engage, we'll include that in the script. But that's an especially, to me, an especially important area where we can get your feedback, because we want to make sure that as we're talking to folks, we're really able to share about this in a way that will resonate for them. So the language in there is pretty broad right now. And I would love to hear, you know, if somebody knocked on your door, what would be helpful for you to hear in this process. So again, we'll reshare those documents, but if you have feedback, we would really, really love to hear it. And we will incorporate that before we actually set off to door knock sometime this month. I will pause here. I think the next thing we are moving to is confirming the dates, times, and locations for the public hearings.
Yes. So thanks everybody for your feedback on the engagement items. We will take that all into consideration as Sasha mentioned. For the public hearings, we had a doodle poll that was open. It still is open. These are the feedback that we received so far in terms of availability from you all for preferences for public meetings. These are spanning across a 2-week period in November, the 2nd and 3rd week, and it alternates. There's a few different options for morning 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. time periods, or evening 6 to 8 p.m. periods. Tuesday, November 11th is a holiday, but there is an option there for a 12 to 2 afternoon slot. And there is one Saturday option in there as well. We are encouraging for as many task force members to come to these public hearings as possible, so you can hear your community's feedback, who shows up in person, but we'll also be capturing that during the meetings as well. We would like to schedule these meetings probably on different days. We've highlighted 3 different days here based on popularity so far: Monday evening of November 10th, Monday, November 17th morning, and then that same week, Thursday in the evening. We will keep this poll open for another day or so, but would like to have these scheduled probably this week so we can start putting that information on the flyer and finalizing that. I'll pause here in case there's thoughts. If you didn't fill out the poll so far for any reason, but want to talk about something in terms of these dates or times, please feel free to raise your hand. Denise.
It's not about dates or times. It's more on the actual format for the public hearings and who's participating and what. So I'll hold off if that's not going to be talked about, or if you're gonna.
Okay, Sasha, do we have? We are talking about the location for these meetings and the format coming up.
Yeah, I think it's sort of part of this section because we also wanted to make time to start talking about recommendations. So I think if you're open to it, I'm fine with hearing that now, if that's Denise, if you want to share, because the format might also help inform the location that we select.
Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to ask, how does it work? Is it going to be something where it is MAPC and DCR, EA, you guys are doing the presentation and we're just attending? Are we expected to speak, or?
The format right now is being worked out based on some of the feedback that we hear today. In general, these are open spaces, mostly for hearing public comment. We can have a little bit of a presentation in the beginning if that would be welcome. I think as you brought up, Denise, earlier, you know, having people who attend understand what has been done to date along the Charles River. Certainly DCR has had phase 1, 2, 3 is happening. And to, you know, set the stage for having people respond to how they've been impacted by some of those projects, and also talk about what they would like to see going forward in terms of actual improvements along the river, or the process by which they've been engaged for some of these projects, the way that DCR could better communicate with communities along these neighborhoods, and just more generally for the projects that we do. So open to hearing from folks here about what would best, you know, work for this type of format for these meetings. Ken, go ahead. Oh, and you are muted.
Yes. A thought, and then also if I could get a response. The thought is, in 25 years of elected life, I have never heard of a public meeting that was 8 to 10 on a Monday morning, ever. Nor have I ever heard of one that was on a Friday from 6 to 8. Now, it might have to do with our local culture in Cambridge, but Monday morning, 8 to 10 could work for state bureaucrats, but I don't think it worked for normal working people. Similarly, Friday, 8 to 10, I don't know if you know the Eagle Fries on Friday. It's just not when you would expect optimal participation from a public audience. The thing I'd like a response from is, a question was asked about who are the stakeholders. And it occurs to me, someone put in the chat that maybe we could put out information on Sundays when various people are in the area. Is somebody from Worcester who happens to be enjoying Riverbend Park the same kind of stakeholder as someone who lives in the area and is concerned about how traffic and other things impact the quality of life? It's a broad question, but did we get any further on who the stakeholders are?
I'm happy to jump in on that, Monica, if that's helpful.
Sure.
I think, Ken, it's a great point, and I think if we did, for folks who are maybe not following the chat, Denise suggested maybe doing some feedback gathering on a Sunday when Memorial Drive is closed and folks are actively out and about, and we can share about the public hearings. I think the hope would be, or at least how I'm thinking about this, is that we would be having conversations with folks and getting a sense of where they're coming from to that space, so that we're understanding who we're engaging with and what we're asking of them as we're talking to them. Not that we wouldn't share information about the public hearing or the survey, but just that we would be doing that knowing how they're coming to that space and what lived experience they're bringing, whether they're residents of Cambridge or coming from, say, Worcester, or, you know, tourists visiting from out of the country. I think similarly, if we did a survey where folks can respond anonymously, we can still include a question that asks how they identify. Are they a resident of Cambridge? Are they a resident of not Cambridge, et cetera? So I think there's some ways that we can kind of get an understanding of where the feedback is coming from, and you all will have access to that information as we're sharing the feedback back with you to inform the recommendations.
Okay, so the quality of the concern is this. Certain coalitions have apparently email lists of thousands of people. And if they respond, their numbers will certainly dwarf the numbers of local residents. So who are the stakeholders is, I think, a real foundational question to this work as we proceed. We have to have a way to understand that in a complex communications environment, is everybody the same?
So,
Go ahead, Monica.
yes, thank you, Ken. And we did talk about this a bit at meeting number 2, but as defined in the statute, the residents along Memorial Drive within a half-mile between Elliott Bridge and Longfellow Bridge are the primary stakeholders for much of this work. The statute also says there are other stakeholders who may visit the area, as you said, from Worcester or other parts of the state to enjoy Memorial Drive and the river. But really, it's the impacted residents are those that really live in the area along the river. And I hope that this task force is really, understanding that and pushing through in terms of the recommendations, the focus of that for impacted residents that are along the river. There may be a lot of feedback that comes in from the public hearings, but that will have to pass through this task force in terms of what it considers should be part of the report, if that makes sense.
And our engagement is targeting the stakeholders as defined through this, rather than kind of bigger lists that maybe go statewide or reach folks in a lot of different geographic areas. We are not intending to promote anything through those bigger lists. We're really trying to do targeted engagement for that reason.
We go on to Ken. Was there anything else you wanted to add there?
I think it's responsible. I'm going to continue to look closely at this question, because we really do, when we value feedback a lot in Cambridge, but we in recent times have often gotten national email lists to respond to our local questions. So it's just really important to understand that respondents come from a range of places.
Yeah. And before we move on, thank you to Lawrence. I know you joined, I believe, after roll call. Can we get just a verbal confirmation that you're here for this meeting?
I am here.
Great, thank you. Lawrence.
Yes, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Good. To follow up, I did not respond to the attendance portion of the public meeting because I'm weary with only having, 48 hours or 24 hours of what's going to be on the agenda list, and my presence is going to be there. I feel very uneasy, and I'm not depicting your meetings, but there doesn't seem to be an after action list that I'm comfortable with. We've had 3 meetings, or maybe 4, that we actually have executed for the next meeting. And I'm being told as of today, and I welcome Ken's mentioning about Monday and Friday, but the organization of you guys has centered on that, and the 8 a.m. and anything after 12 noon on Friday. I don't know what world you're living in, but even though I'm retired, I know a lot of people are happy getting done noontime on Friday and disappearing, and other folk who kind of sort of put things off until after 11 on Monday for the critical offices and other things they got to do. And now I'm just hearing within this meeting today how you want to quickly move to get something set up. And I, as a member of this task force, I'm being honest, uncomfortable without having information in front of me of what the agenda is going to be, particularly where, like you just stated, these sessions, the public is for us to sit and to hear them. And I want to make sure what I'm hearing is kind of sort of, even if I am singly in opposition, at least I'm sitting with knowledge what's going on. So can we kind of match that up to move heads a little further? I mean, I think y'all got some real work to do, but let's get to work that we are all a team and being observed by a public who realizes that we are engaged and not just sitting mannequins in their presence to go through the steps.
Great, thank you for the feedback, Lawrence. And I was hearing two things. Primarily, one was the timing of the meetings, and what's up here on the slide is certainly not set, and that this is why we're getting feedback from you all on hearing, you know, if Monday mornings are absolutely a no-go, same with Fridays. We can definitely adjust that. This is not set yet. And the other part that I was hearing is the content for the meeting. And this is also something that we're getting input from you all today on what you would like to see be the structure for the public hearings. And understand the feeling of uncomfortableness of not having that set now before advertising that too. So we need to do a little bit.
It's just not the set now, but what are we going to be there observing the public responding to? The information that I continue to see is that you guys, MAPC, left, right, EA, all you all have these great, wonderful conversations. And then you give task force members whatever. And I just read from, I believe it's Sasha, who puts out that is it 24 or 48 hours? One of the two, that these things go out and that's it. We don't have opportunity to say that you're mistaken or approved or any of that. We get that and that's the end of the game. So I'm a little lost because we don't have, and correct me if I'm missing it, have we ever had any of these meetings with an actual action list defined for the next meeting that we were going to do? Because you kind of sort of aren't even making that the execution for the public meeting, other than whenever you get your date together, and that we're going to be there solely to allow the public to give its feedback. If I'm mistaken, tell me.
Lawrence, are you talking about having recommendations? Or are you talking about the materials that we sent out in preparation for today's meeting?
No, I'm not talking about today's meeting. If I'm mistaken, the structure that you have now, because I keep keying, for the public meeting, you would have 2 days in advance that the task force members would be provided the agenda for that meeting, for the public meeting, not the task force, the public meeting.
No, that's we have to post, like, legally the deadline for posting any public meeting is 48 hours. That doesn't mean that we are going to share the agenda with you only 48 hours in advance. The reason we're trying to schedule these now is so that we can include the dates and the times in the engagement that we're doing this month. And the reason we want to have these scheduled is so that we can move on to talking about the agenda with you all. These hearings are going to be really important for informing the recommendations that, as you mentioned, Lawrence, this task force is really putting together and working together on. So we want to make sure that the public hearings are valuable to you all and provide the input that you are looking for as a task force. So there is no agenda that we are going to post 48 hours in advance that you all have not seen. That is not the point of this work. We're just trying to get dates set so that we can properly let the public know about them, so that they can, block their calendars if they want to come, etc. Something that you all shared in previous meetings was that there wasn't enough notice about meetings or events happening in the area. And so we're really trying to be proactive about this so that folks know ahead of time when the meeting is happening and where, when the hearing is happening and where and at what time. So that's the idea here, but the intention is not that you all would would not see the agenda or the materials. Similar to the engagement, like the flyer, etc., we would want to get your feedback on the structure for the public hearings. And that is part of what we're hoping to talk about today. But we need the time and date.
I'm going to hold the remainder of my comments to the probably later in this program. I am really hoping to hear vastly from the entire membership of how this 205 environmental justice is going on, because as great as we make the flyer, I don't see that in the flyer. I know people I talk to say, wow, didn't know anything about it. Thanks for letting me know incrementally. But again, we're running against organizations that vastly outsize us, and that the DCR honestly have been working with folk for a long time without ever having an engagement. That's why I put in the chat section that 205 message. You know, it's not that we're new, others are new. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold off. I don't want to say another word. I am going to wait for a vigorous conversation today from everybody who's watching this on how this 205 has whatever in their area or not, and what are we going to do with making sure that the evidence of this flyer gets everybody there, and not just the usual folk, all due respects, that have been engaged with everything that's going on in DCR. Thanks.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thomas?
Yes, just had 4 quick points on my end. So I think someone else said it at the beginning of this segment of the meeting. I would recommend a general overview regarding the purpose of the task force at the beginning of each public hearing. I'd love to see that, and I think it'd be beneficial for general public who might not be familiar with the purpose. Second point, if these meetings are in person, I would like to see an online Zoom version available for each meeting. Third point, I do believe it's beneficial to have both morning and evening public meetings. This would provide meeting options to people who work days, and also to those who work nights. So I like that variety. In my fourth comment, I would just like to echo Ken's comment. I'd like to see the outreach focused on the local civic associations, the local churches, and door knocking in the neighborhoods that are most affected by the weekend closure of Memorial Drive and the general public realm improvements. So those are my 4 points on this section.
Great, that's very helpful. Thank you. Sheila. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm just going to third that motion on localizing the surveys and all. I know that when Boston Calling came into effect, somehow they got a mailing list that showed the people within the district that were affected. Not the people that were pleasingly attending or coming from somewhere else to attend and liking the event, but the people who had to was within the distance of being disturbed by the music for the entire weekend, those that were getting the impact of the traffic for the entire weekend. And I think that we're smart enough between Cambridge and DCR. I think we have enough statistical documentation that suggests who is really being affected. And those people's surveys and those individuals' needs should be met first, if possible. That's who should be met first. And in doing any of these events or anything other than an emergency construction, like the building that now is being demolished for the purpose of everyone's safety, or any type of water main break or anything of that nature, anything that's going to be a pattern, that's going to be permanent, that's going to be consistent, needs to be surveyed by those who are living in the area that it affects. And then if you want to reach out beyond that, just to see, if people will travel into it once we've laid the land on it and said, this is what we can do and what we cannot do, that's all fine and well. But I think reaching out beyond the local area, the tax-paying individuals and on and on and on, we need to really focus on localizing this to a mailing list of people who, they may not all respond, but at least we know we're targeting those who it affects. Thank you.
That's really helpful, Sheila, and good to know that the Boston Calling had a specific list that really targeted residents that were nearby.
And I just want to reiterate that, we've really heard the targeted ask here, and that is really what the engagement is designed to do. We, of course, somebody who is not from the defined stakeholder list might get a hold of a survey if they see a flyer on a street they're walking down and fill it out, but there will be measures in place, including a question about where they're, filling out the survey from, and conversations that we're having with people directly, where we will know who we're hearing from, and we can use that information to help inform how we're weighing the recommendations. And more importantly, you all will have that information and can use that. So I just want to be very clear, because I'm hearing the concern that folks are raising, and I know that this is a really important matter to you all. We do hear that, and we have set up the engagement, and we'll continue to design the engagement materials to really be responsive to that. We are not planning to do broad scale engagement in a way that would get, I think, large participation from folks who are not in the impacted area that we're talking about. And to the extent that we can, we will have measures in place that will help us understand who we're hearing from without, getting a ton of personal data that folks may not want to share. So really appreciate folks sharing that, and just want to really echo that that is both what we're hearing now, but also what we've heard in previous meetings, and we have incorporated that into our strategy.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next slide, just want to still pause to see if there's any more comments on timing or dates for these meetings, but also the structure. I know Thomas mentioned, for the beginning of these hearings, it would be good to have an overview of what the task force is. Are there any other comments or recommendations for, how we should shape the structure before we open it up to general comments from the public? Is there any key information that should be put in the beginning in terms of overview material for the public? Ken, you're unmuted if you wanted to say something.
I'm sorry. I was looking for my hand. This is a perspective. Ideally, it seems to me that part of who's on stage would be residents of Alston Brighton and also of Cambridge, just so that people coming would sort of see who's there like them. I think it would make for a better meeting just to have some citizen faces in addition to people from the agencies. And also people could understand that the local representatives are hearing on behalf of the locals would be the idea.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that feedback. David?
Yes. Do we actually have a rendering of what this plan is going to look like?
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a noise that popped up. Could you
Yeah.
repeat that?
Do we have a rendering of what the plan is going to look like? Something people can actually look at?
The task force report, is that what you're referring to?
No, what the changes will look like to Memorial Drive.
This task force is not focused on any particular current changes that are happening. There definitely are projects that are happening along Memorial Drive. Some of the overview could be put into the beginning of these public hearings to acknowledge, the work that's ongoing, and that has been done in the past. But this is not, the goal of the hearings is not an overview of all of these projects that are happening. It's really to solicit feedback from the public about how they've been impacted and how future impacts could be mitigated by certain changes that the agencies could be making.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On this call.
Okay, if there's no other hands up, let's move on to the next slide. So part of what we wanted to do for this meeting is to really get your feedback and bringing up some of the recommendations, draft recommendations that we can discuss that will not be presented or necessarily talked about at these hearings. We're still getting feedback from the public, but to start the discussion now so that we can continue it after these public hearings are held. So these can be recommendations that we've heard, some ideas from previous meetings, such as, how can communication happen better to communities along Memorial Drive? How should that communication happen? We've heard some ideas around actual physical updates that could happen in specific areas along Memorial Drive. We've heard ideas around capping the number of events that result in road closures. So open to any ideas that you've been thinking of, that your communities that you're associated with have been talking about, that we can start to think about building those out for the report as it develops. Denise.
Thank you. This is a good segue for a question I have. I know that you've heard a lot from myself, you've heard from Sheila, you've heard from Lawrence. As Fran was on, she had something, but she put it in the chat. We've heard from Thomas, but it would be great to hear from the other organizations or people on the call about what has been their impact or pain point. And that may help us shape this as well, but I have not heard from them. I know what ours are, but I haven't heard from, say, Thomas or Laura. We got a little bit from Fran, but that would be great to hear.
Yeah,
or Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Denise, so much. And I invite Fran to, if you'd like to share more about what you put in the chat, open to hearing that, and anybody else that would like to speak up as well.
Yes, I'm just concerned that the setback requirements by the I forgot the name of it. It's the law that talks about river edge. Maybe Laura Przezinski can help me with the right name. That it's not respected, that it's violated along 70% of the stretch between Elliott Bridge and Anderson Bridge. And so for example, in order to put in a 15-foot wide paving, both for shared use paths, pedestrian and bike, and for a separate pedestrian path, you have to extend the land into the river, which is 70% along the stretch, because it's not wide enough as it is now. There is a much easier solution by which you just keep what you have now as a path, but have it only for pedestrians, and put the bicycles on the now available lane on Memorial Drive, which is the Memorial Drive. The car lanes are supposed to be reduced from 4 to 2. So we have the space to have a decent size bicycle lane, bicycle only lane, and pedestrian only lane on the existing land. So if you do that, it will actually save millions of dollars because the infrastructure is practically already there. You don't need to do all these changes that are proposed. Anyhow, so I would strongly suggest that you look at that and evaluate it and explain why this is not going to be a better solution.
Thank you, Fran. I heard from your comments about keeping bicyclists separate from pedestrians and also in ways that don't require expanding too much into the river area. And also want to clarify that if this is also in reference to the Phase 3 Memorial Drive project, that has pretty much been all permitted and is going forward at this point. And you know, comments are mostly around mitigation of construction impacts, but certainly your comments could be applied to other areas outside of that project for consideration.
Understand why our comments, which have been given, you know, already last year, have not been considered.
Understood. And would also, you know, channel that towards, you know, how could there be better processes to receive and respond to comments too? That's one thing that this task force can consider. Let's go to Laura.
Thanks, Monica, and thanks, Sheila, for that prompting. And I would say, Monica, you just hit on probably one of the things that we care about as an organization, the Charles River Conservancy, is how do we get more feedback and more open conversation? So this task force aims to get at that. I could talk a lot about the different kind of ways we try to work with DCR. We're a nonprofit that kind of works all along the Cambridge shoreline on DCR land. I would say one of our interests is both on kind of the maintenance and planning. So both trying to make sure there's good feedback when there's physical planning projects like Phase 3 or others coming up, but also focusing on how do we actually take care of those landscapes and how can we leverage the resources that we have as a nonprofit and getting volunteers involved, and how do people actually want to be involved. So both getting the word out, but also I think one of the things that has been a challenge is, for example, when we see trees planted, but trees not planted properly and then not cared for, you know, then they suffer and they die, right? They don't serve the purpose that they can as an important tree canopy for the city. So we're trying to focus on how can we help fill that gap. Similarly, how can we help if we hear good ideas about programming, what would open up, you know, how should the closure of Memorial Drive change? How could it be better? We'd love to know more about that so that we can help implement some of those things with DCR and kind of a critical friend relationship there, right? Both really trying to work with DCR and push DCR to do more and implement these ideas. So I don't know if that entirely answers your question, Sheila, but I could talk for hours about lots of different things, but I'd say that's where our focus would be, is how, like, both what are we hearing, and then how can we, as the kind of the Friends Group nonprofit, play a role in actually activating some of these ideas and solutions and good ideas.
Thanks, Laura. And I'm hearing maybe threads of that come into like recommendations around, you know, DCR establishing better partner policies and practices, like, and have better communication for all of the different stakeholders and organizations that are involved in work along the Charles. I see, David, I don't know if this is a remnant hand up, but if so, if not, speak up. Okay, let's go to Kyle. or?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to address, sort of the question of the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority's sort of perspective and opinion on changes and that kind of thing. Our organization has primarily focused in sort of the Kendall Square area over the past few decades, sort of building out Kendall Square in the Innovation District there. But that has generated resources where we're now sort of looking citywide to see how we can have more impact. Some of our strategic plan priorities include things like an inclusive and livable city, so including things like implementing infrastructure that is going to benefit the daily lives of residents in Cambridge, as well as sustainability. So thinking long term, are there solutions that we can put in place that can guard against climate change over the next, sort of several decades looking forward? So all that, I think we have a general perspective to understand conversations and work towards solutions in those realms. Though I would say, we recognize redevelopment authorities over their history have gotten in a lot of trouble and made some bad decisions by assuming they knew what the community needed. So, I think we view ourselves as kind of an actor who can help implement ideas. We can sort of figure out how to get things done, but when it comes to what the community needs and desires, I think we're really more listening and want to hear directly from the residents so that we can then apply our resources and tools to, sort of advance the priorities of the residents.
Great, thank you. Thomas.
Yes, just wanted to address Denise's question. So I'm one of the few Alston residents who's on this task force, and the issues that are impacting Cambridge residents are likely vastly different than what I'm seeing from what's going on along Memorial Drive. My purpose of going over to Memorial Drive is mainly recreation. Take my wife and my son for a stroll, push them in the carriage on a weekend. However, what I've heard in the first few meetings is that there may be significant traffic congestion issues that have been ongoing since Memorial Drive was closed on both Saturday and Sunday, starting during COVID. So that's again why I agree with Ken Reeves's point that this public hearing outreach should be focused mainly on those who are most impacted by the road closures or the public realm improvements along Memorial Drive. I just want to make sure that the feedback that we're receiving at these public meetings is coming from the people who are most affected by what's going on along Memorial Drive at this point in time. So I hope that answers Denise's question.
Great, thank you, Thomas. Stephen?
Yeah, I live in Cambridgeport, and obviously a key issue for us is the backups and congestion and noise from the BU Bridge and even from across the river on the Mass Pike extension and Starrow Drive. I was wondering, because we spent a lot of time documenting all that stuff, getting traffic counts, noise meter readings. I was wondering, and then I have a couple of other comments, whether that's been done in terms of noise level or traffic backup in parts of the Riverside neighborhood. I know people feel that, but I haven't seen statistical or measured information about it, which would help make that argument or help us understand the parameters of it. In Cambridgeport, there's a little league baseball field, and kids play there all the time. And used to have big loudspeakers to announce the games, especially the Little League World Series, quite a big event in the neighborhood. And there were some neighbors who would complain, I don't want to hear all this. And we, at some point, decided collectively, through the Cambridgeport Neighborhood Association and other discussions, that the occasional noise from a Little League game was less important than the greater good for our kids to have something really important to do. So I think part of the issue we have to deal with is not merely is there noise, but whose events are happening. If it's your neighborhood, you'll put up with more. If you feel it's an imposition, you put up with less. And I think that has to be part of the conversation of what kinds of events are happening where. And finally, as a loss also, I think Thomas just mentioned the recreational component. For us and my family and my grandkids, it's been a real loss not having Memorial Drive closed on the weekends, on Saturday as well. That was a place we could go. I taught my oldest grandchild to ride her bike there. I have not been able to do that with my youngest. So there is also a need for space that's safe, protected from cars, where people can walk and play along the river. And it shouldn't all be a burden on the Riverside neighborhood, but we do need that again for all of us. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. All of these are helpful comments. I'm also mindful of time and we only have a few minutes left. Let's go to the next slide in terms of next steps. So there's a number of things that will be happening over this next month. Sasha went over the engagement plan, which will include door knocking, one-to-one conversations, focus groups, some community meetings. There's also an idea of doing a site visit or a walkthrough along Memorial Drive, and we didn't have time to talk about it today, but we'll follow up in email about what this might look like, and this might also spark some on-the-ground look at Memorial Drive for some recommendation development for the report. We still need to determine the locations for these public hearings. We also heard the need to have both a virtual component as well as in person. We still need to determine the dates for the public hearings, and we've heard both today about, thoughts around Monday and Friday meetings in the morning, afternoon, but also the need to have a variety of different types of timing for these meetings. So we'll have to think about that a little bit. So we'll have the public outreach and then also the public hearings in November. And then after that will be the development of the initial draft for the task force report. So MAPC will be taking that on, hearing all the comments that you provided today, as well as taking in the comments that will come from the public hearings and putting that into a report for us all to review and discuss at a meeting to be scheduled in January. So those are some next steps here. And all of this will be provided as a summary in the email, and there will also be an opportunity to provide further feedback about some of these materials and plans. Lawrence, before we close out.
Yeah, before you close, I just want to make sure what I'm hearing. The public meetings are going to be in person.
That's our plan.
Thank you.
But
Just clarity.
yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. And we've heard some location ideas for those meetings, and we will also strive to make those virtual as well. So hybrid, both in person, but people can tune in via Zoom. Okay, I think I'll hand it over to Denise or Sheila.
Just
Did
really
you have?
quickly,
Sure.
will these ever be in person or hybrid as well, or is it just easier to do this on Zoom? Because sometimes things get lost if you can't be in a meeting around the table. And
Yeah, understood. Right now, these task force meetings will most likely continue as virtual, but we're really trying to put a focus on at least the public hearings to be in person or hybrid. Sheila.
Yes, I'm just looking out for David's interest, David English. I believe him coming in late. Maybe there's someone that can kind of bring him up to par, because I think he came in the same way we did, looking at projects that are already existing and trying to make changes in those projects, opposed to this is all something that is really for projects that are moving forward.
Yeah, we're happy to, Jonathan and I are happy to meet with David if that's something that would be helpful, or to figure out if there's another format you were thinking about, Sheila. We're open to that idea as well.
Well, I can certainly give them some insight, but I think coming from one of you all because I was not understanding when I first came in, you know, where we was in this process. I thought that it was for past projects that, you know, we were unhappy with or in disagreement with, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And I think that he's coming in the same way, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's coming in the same way. So I'm understanding it better now, and I'm hoping to bring him to that position as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, we've provided some information over email and had a little bit of an exchange, but we'll follow up with that point. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to pass it over to Jonathan, who will be closing us out.
And thank you, everybody, for your insight and the conversation today. We're definitely grabbing all of your feedback and doing our best to incorporate them. And if you were unable to mention something today, always feel free to reach out to Monica and I. We're always willing to meet and discuss to ensuring that these meetings are accessible and that they provide you the space to speak up, and that we're able to find a solution on all of these concerns or challenges or opportunities that we're hearing. So we're not gonna accept public comments just because we're already we run out of time. So I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
A motion has
second
been made and second by Denise. Is there any final discussion? Seeing none, I'm gonna do the roll call, starting with Monica.
Yes, to adjourn.
Thank you. Logan is absent. Derek?
Yes.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yes.
Thank you. Ken?
Yes.
Jeremy? Still with us? I think so. Gideon is also out. Laura?
Yes.
Thank you. Angela is absent. Fran?
No.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Thank you. Shayla?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. Denise?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. David?
Yes.
Awesome. And I vote yes. The meeting is adjourned, everybody. Thank you so much, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
You.